back. The section for the fuel cap is molded in place. I haven't broke this free. I haven't took the nuts out or anything. All I did was remove the clamshell molding section for it. So what we do at this point, we're just going to leave it as it is. I went through and checked it out. I didn't get any flashing in it when I did added the wax underneath the. In the last video, I talked about the flashing or the gel coat leaching. There is a couple little tiny pieces that it's come through, but nothing to worry about. When I pull it apart, there's a little bit of tape residue that was still on the sides, so I just had to clean that up. It's all good. I'm not worried about trimming it yet. So at this point, we're going to wax this up. Well, first, before we do that, I'm going to try to determine where my bolting screw, whenever the mold is complete, you have to kind of imagine the mold is complete and determine where you're going to put your screws if you have certain inserts and things like that in your mold. So I'm going to put an alignment dowel. So what I'm going to do is I'll take my rotary tool, my Dremel, and I will take and cut like a little dished out area in here to create like a dowel. So what will happen is when I mold the mold halves, the gel coat will fill up inside there and you'll fiberglass inside of it. So when you remove the part off of here, you'll have that groove that you cut out of here for an alignment dowel. So whenever I put this mold together, it's physically impossible for me to have this thing 180 degrees out, etc., simply because there'll be an alignment dowel molded in place, which is an exact replica of the component. So now that this is done, we'll get the alignment dowel done. We will put our panel up and create our flange, or what will be our flange in our mold in here. And I usually you can use anything really, cardboard, tape, plywood. I usually use a cheap Luann style, like it's about 4mm plywood, and I will turn the tank up on the side on the sheet of plywood and kind of eyeball draw it with a pencil, and then I'll go cut it out. And generally it's cut out smaller, and then so it's a little more fiddly as far as constantly trimming it and trying to get it to perfectly fit to match the contour. Like I said, when it's done, there's still, there's going to be imperfections. It's not going to touch the tank in certain areas, so you're going to try to want to fix the potential flashing that could be generated from your flange. So I use modeling clay. Once this is all done and I have the plate put on here with hot glue and secured in place, then I come on the back side, on the molding side, and actually add the modeling clay, scrape it off nice and straight. It turns out great. So anyways, I'm going to work on getting the first panel, this dividing plate in here for our flange. Once that's done, we'll come back. I'll show it to you, what I've done and how it's secured, and with the modeling clay and everything installed in there. All right, I wanted to give you a quick show what I'll do. Basically, I got the tank propped up on this piece of plywood, and I take and basically run down the edge of the tank, kind of making it smaller, give myself a rough draft line all the way around, and then I will cut probably from that line basically the distance of that, and just cut it off square out of here, and then I'll trim this all out and just slowly work it until it fits the profile, side view profile of the tank, and then that's it. So we'll touch base back when it's got. I just wanted to show you basically what I'm doing and how you achieve to get your flange panel. All right, we have the flange on. I've already went ahead, and I'm not sure if you can see it in this video, but I got really good seam on my flange, so it required very little modeling clay. I use this modeling clay. It's an oil-based clay. You can get it at craft stores. It's relatively cheap, depending on how much. If you can actually make components out of clay and then mold them if you need to, so volume of it is up to your discretion. But yeah, I was able to run it up in the major cracks, I used my pencil line that I had drawn on the tank. That is my reference line for setting this flange. And then this is our part that we had cast before. And then right here you can see I took a burr bit on a Dremel, which is a round ball or ball style bit, so it would have no undercuts. So basically cut that little divot in there that will, when we mold this panel, it will create a dowel pin that will lock into this piece, so it'll keep it from being able to shift, and always keeping our bolt alignment in the correct position in the fuel tank. And then the front, same thing. Come around here, so you can see, use popsicle sticks to create braces, so that makes this very rigid. And then also on, when you wax the tank, the hot glue will stick, but a pretty vigorous bump can actually pop it loose. So what I generally do is, after this cures, I just dabble a little bit more around it. I don't put it heavy, just dabble a little bit more around it to give it a wider footprint to be stronger. Same thing here in the front. So that's all you're doing, is trying to rigid this up a little bit. So you can see I'm wiggling it, it ain't moving at all. So now we're going to move on to doing the bottom flange. And the bottom flange, I'm going to experiment first and see if aluminum tape, duct tape will work. If it will, then that's what I'm going to use for my bottom flange. I don't necessarily need a flange on this section, but I prefer flanges on my molds because it helps give the shape of the mold the integrity, to keep it from shrinkage factors from the heat generated from the fiberglass material. You know, you're going to try to make this as cool as curing as possible, but with the heat that I have out right now, I prefer to go ahead and put a flange on here, and then that will help fix some of my potential cave-ins in this longer span. So anyways, I will get the tape on here, and I'll come back, show you if the tape's going to work. If not, when we come back, we'll have whatever I decided to use as my flange for the outer section. That's it. All right, we have the flanges. The mold flanges are on. The top was wood, and the bottom I ended up doing with cardboard. I ended up having to cut some relief cuts in it, and then I taped it over. And then on this piece of cardboard, being that it's corrugated, I went with the grain and actually pre-bent it all up so it would form really nice up against the edge, and then tied it in up here at the top. And then I used aluminum tape. This is really thin stuff. This is great. And then you have to pull the back side off of it, so when you do long strips, be careful and hold on to it, because it will curl back on itself. And then after put the tape down, I went through with my modeling clay, and I put it in the cracks to fill the gaps up in there. I use a popsicle stick. I grind one end off of it flat so that I'm able to scrape along with it. You don't want to use metal, because you could scratch the surface on your plug. So I just use a popsicle stick, square it off. I'm able to scrap, do it on there, and then I take and use a paper towel, and the excess will rub off kind of like wax. So buff that off of there, and then I actually waxed with the mold release on here, on the cardboard and everything. I basically used the aluminum tape. That's to keep the glass wouldn't stick with the wax, but still fibers will, and it gets into the actual gel coat. So to try to minimize that, I use the aluminum tape to form around it. But other than that, it's ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and apply the gel coat. Once the gel coat's on, the gel coat will be put on kind of heavy, especially in the areas of the flanges, because that way I can true it up really nice. Definitely in the corners of the molds, so that I have the ability to do any kind of sanding, especially down here on this the opening of the flange. I'll want to square that off in the mold with sandpaper after this is completed. But other than that, she is ready to go. We'll get this sprayed up, and then potentially tonight I'll be able to actually lay up the glass and have this section done. When this section is done, you'll peel away specifically this flange, and your new molded flange will be the flange baked back for the other side. So works out great. Once the hard part is the flanges that will not help each other, and that's this one. Only thing it'll help me for is reference for putting the other side up. So other than that, I'm gonna get this sprayed up and we'll touch base back when it is done. See ya. All right, the gel coat sprayed. We'll let this cure. If you've never sprayed gel coat or applied gel coat, it can have a rough texture to it. It's not going to matter. It's all going to be smooth underneath because it's matching the part. But got a really heavy concentration around, like I said, where all the flanges or the corners will be of the mold, simply because there may be some chips and I need to make sure I have enough in case I need to repair or anything like that, or when I sand it, wet sand the mold after it's done, that I don't break through into the fiberglass. Because if you break through the gel coat into the fiberglass, your surface finish of your part that you make will replicate it, and you will see it, and you won't be able to fix it at all. You'll simply see the texture of the fiberglass on the surface finish, if you're trying to get a part that has a pristine looking surface. So anyways, this is done. When this is cured, I'm going to lay it up. If you're not familiar with doing fiberglass layup, you can watch my basics video, using the bubble rollers, etc., mixing it, the resins, types of resins. Just watch the other video. But other than that, I'm going to do this and then we will come back when it's laid up. See ya.